Training, it's so key to every dealership, and it is one of the tools for our success in this industry. In this episode, we have special guest Charles on again, and we're going to talk all about training, how to make great training that's had a big influence on our careers. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great episode all about training.
Welcome to Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Prepare to learn something new about the industry that keeps us moving.
Check out all our podcast content on our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X. Welcome back. So in this episode, we're going to do another discussion about training. Training is one of those fundamental management tools that we really have not mastered in this industry. And one of our big goals as a company, as a podcast, and as trainers is really to improve the state of training in the used car industry. And so for this episode, we thought it'd be fun to have Charles back on the show, and we're going to just share experiences and different perspectives on training. So Charles, welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So it's one of both of our favorite topics, talking about
Absolutely.
training. And
Absolutely. I think it's critical to what we do every single day.
Absolutely. It's one of those fundamental management tools.
Absolutely.
And yet it's almost like a distant afterthought in the used car industry.
I think that, and not only in the used car industry, but I think in small business period, is that we're going to do it one way. We're not going to step outside the box. We don't need to go through all the training. When you need to go through training to stay inside the box even, because you're teaching somebody how to do something in a more effective way.
You know, a lot of the listeners already know there's, differences in our backgrounds and all. You bring the corporate background.
Right?
I definitely, came from the small to medium sized business background. So we have very different backgrounds, but we're both big into training. You want to share a little bit about your experience with training, your background with training?
Coming from corporate America, from large companies like General Electric, like City Financial, like Household, training was critical in everything we did. And I mean, we had whole training departments who developed training, who worked with managers, who worked with staff on training to build training that's going to be effective. I think some of the most effective training I've been in is training that's been something I've needed for my day-to-day job. You can do a lot of training that is real feel good and people walk away saying, yeah. However, how does this affect what I do on a daily basis?
It's kind of interesting when you look back at your career and think about all the training that you've been to. I was lucky for having grown up in the car industry. I did go out and get other training, and I've had other job experiences and all of that. So I definitely had the opportunity to get a lot more training, and it made a big impact on me. I mean, there are things that I look back at and like, wow, that training really did have a profound effect on my career.
And not even on your career, but in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Because you can find out some things you learn in training that you can use as you just go through life, period. I think one of the best training classes I went to was on conversational de-escalation. When somebody's really angry and they're over the top, and how do you bring them down? How do you get them back to a level that's going to work for everybody involved? So we went through a 3-day training class. In the beginning, we said 3 days on how to talk. I know how to talk. However, when they talk about de-escalating, understanding what's escalated when you can bring it down and what's escalating and you can't bring it down. And I found myself using those tools. You be quiet and listen. You don't interject. You don't interrupt. You wait for the quiet time to step in and then to listen to what they're saying, not just what they're saying. And I found that happened to benefit me in my private life, in my raising my children, in everything that I've done. That 3-day class has helped me in my communication skills and helping de-escalate issues that are there.
It's funny you mentioned de-escalation. That's a training that I've been to that I could say lifelong impact. I definitely
Mhm.
got a lot from that. There's so much value, especially for this industry. The soft skills training so valuable to me. Uh, just the interpersonal communications type training, everything along those lines, active listening and uh, emotional IQ and all of that stuff. Super valuable.
When you think about when you're going to a training class, first of all, you have to be open to accept what's coming. And some classes, some classes you go into and you go, I'm going to get nothing out of this. But by the end of it, you became a proponent to say, everybody need to go to this class because stuff in there was so good. And most of that stuff was interactive, and you're able to talk and you're able to share stories. And it was a safe place. I think a lot of times, I think a lot of times that good trainers, really good trainers, know how to get people involved, know how to get people to participate, to understand this is a safe place for you to come to and share things, especially when you're all working for the same company. And some of your issues may step on other people's toes. You have to know it's a safe place and how to present it in doing that. That was another great class I went to. And that class was um, how not to dig yourself a hole. When you talk about you're going to have conversations with people, don't back yourself in a corner. Great training class that everybody should have went to because it really taught us how to communicate and how to communicate in a positive manner, and everybody leaving with a win-win attitude.
There's something about going to good training when you actually have an opportunity, and it's a really good, especially unexpectedly good class. How it is more motivating than any motivational speaker ever could be.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
it leaves you ready to get back to work and want to apply what you learned, and you see new opportunities, and you see how you've grown in skill or knowledge, and you're ready to apply it, and all of a sudden something that was difficult before seems a little bit easier and more manageable now. I love that aspect of training.
Because I think the other part of that is that when you go to these training classes and you look at the implementation of what you've learned, they really help. They help you walk through how you implement it. Because you can go to train, you can hear certain things about think you're going to implement. It's going to be great. It's going to be really good, and it doesn't work out that way. But really good training will teach you how to implement some of the things that you're talking about. And a lot of that is role playing. A lot of that is just being open and honest and having a conversation about it. But you have to be able to find a way to implement it in a very positive manner.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in the instructional design world, they talk about three domains of training. There are three things that we teach. There's the psychomotor domain, which is physical skills. So not a lot of physical skills that we teach in collections or automotive sales or stuff like that. There's probably something that we could think of, but not much in
Mm-hmm.
that domain. There's the cognitive domain where everyone really focus on. This is the procedural knowledge. This is book knowledge type stuff. So in the collections realm, it would be stuff like FDCPA and collections law. In sales, it might be uh, ECOA. It might be compliance stuff. It might be sales procedures. But the uh, the domain that in so many ways has like the lifelong value is what they call the affective domain, which is the mindset, the emotional qualities, the aspects that you want to have people take emotionally and mindset wise into their job. And I uh, I can think of some training that I've had that was just purely in that affective domain. I went to a mental health class, and it was primarily taught by mental health consumers, and it gave me a perspective on how to work with this population. You work with this population all the time. There's all sorts of times where you're talking to someone who's in a bad place, whether employee or customer or vendor or member of the public, whatever it may be, and having some insight and understanding from their perspective, super valuable. And even though I couldn't tell you anything as far as procedure wise or book knowledge wise to come from that class, just getting their perspective and building some empathy for mental health consumers with real
Right.
difficult challenges, super valuable. And it changed my mindset and it has stuck with me. That was probably nearly 20 years ago.
But the other part I think that's so important that makes good training class a good training class is a trainer that knows what they're talking about, knows what the outcome should be, and can help you work through those things. There's nothing worse. I know we'll talk about this later, but there's nothing worse than a trainer that goes in and they really don't know what they're talking about. And you sit back and go, you're getting paid to do this. You really don't believe what you're talking about. There has to be some excitement and some energy from that presenter. Even if you're doing in collections, we do a lot of one-on-one side-by-side training. You really must be able to sit down and say, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. Let's get you trained up to where we can be. When that's because there's a lot of classroom training, but I think also in the auto industry, we don't have a lot of time to do big training. If you can get a session that is really really good, you should send people to that for that day or day and a half, whatever it's going to be. But I think we have a lot of time for one-on-one training on to build people up one-on-one to look at what their deficiencies are and help them improve those. And I think that in training, that's part of what you have to do because you're going to have superstars. You have people at the top that's going to say, I got this. And you're going to have people at the bottom going, I really don't care. I'm here because it's sad to be here. But if you can impact those middle people in training that moves them close to the top, it's a win-win for everybody. You're winning and you're winning and you're winning.
You bring up something that yeah, has always been a big deal to me. One of the things I look at when I evaluate employee performance is their ability to respond to training. And it's a real bad sign when you get that person that doesn't respond to training. Like, you know what? This is probably not going to be a long-term fit.
Absolutely. And when you do that training, when you do that one-on-one training or two-on-one training, you really do get to see the skill set of the people who are in your employee right now. And there are some people you go, he's a really good fit, but you know what? He ain't gonna be here long.
Mhm.
There's somebody else that says, not a good fit, but not a good fit. This is not going to work well. But there's all those people you say, these people have all the potential in the world. If they can accept training and utilize it, it's going to make our business that much better.
Yeah, I'm always really excited when you get the employee, their skill level isn't exactly where you need it to be,
Right.
but they're trainable. And then you see this potential, and you know what? We can get there. And I think that's the exciting thing on the manager side
Yes.
to identify your potential talent and be able to use training to get someone up to the next level.
And for the manager or the trainer to see somebody who you have worked with, somebody you have assisted in getting things done, and you see them succeeding and you see them doing really, really well, that's a win for you because you have done everything you could to help this person be successful and they have listened, they've taken part of it, and they said, okay, that's really good. Those are the managers that need to be recognized because they took somebody who somebody said, not sure they have it, but they have that little twinkle in their eye, and you say, yeah, I think they do have it. For you to go and say, look what we've done. We've took this person from below 0 to a 7, 8, 9. And if they get to be a 10, hey, we're good.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation in our next episode, but in the meantime, be sure if you have your thoughts training and what training has made a big difference to you, leave those thoughts in the comments below. And it's also an important time to remind you guys about a big event we have coming up, and it relates to the topic of training. In fact, Charles, if you want to let everyone know what we got coming up.
We're having a training academy where we're going to talk about things that are going to be pertinent to your dealership. And it's not the contracts. Is we're going to talk about management. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about setting a climate that's inclusive and people want to be there. And that's coming up in August. So if you have some questions or concerns, you want to know more about the training we're coming up, I believe there's a link on there, isn't there?
Yep, the
Yep.
link is going to be in the show notes below. It's going to be our Dealership Managers Academy, and that's August 12th and 13th. And to get $100 off, use coupon code August. Coupon code August will take $100 off the price tag. It's going to be the training event. This is going to be the premier dealership managers training held this year by anyone.
Oh, and it's going to be, there's good stuff coming. There's good stuff coming.
Awesome. Well, with that, it's been another episode of Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers. Check out our podcast on all our social media channels. We are at Down Payment Podcast on YouTube, Down Payment Podcast on Instagram, and Down Payment Pod on X.
Thank you for listening. Down Payment, the podcast for used car dealers, is a production of Meta Financial Services Incorporated.